All right, turning now to redistricting in the state of Michigan. This week starts a trial from a lawsuit that was brought by the League of Women Voters accusing Republicans of drawing unconstitutional voting maps to benefit their party. Well, new Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson said she had an idea to settle the suit by redrawing at least 11 districts in time for the 2020 election. Well, not so fast, said a group of federal judges who ruled just late last week that Benson didn't have the authority to make a settlement. But she explained to WDET's Stephen Henderson her idea behind it and the eventual redistricting to come in 2022.
You've taken a lot of flack for this settlement, for this proposal. People saying you're a Democrat, you're just trying to make sure there are more Democrats in the state house. At the same time, as you point out, this is a pretty restrained solution. You could have said, let's redraw everything that was challenged here. But how do you answer that accusation that this is also partisan, that even if Republicans purposely drew the map to favor themselves, what you're doing now is about trying to help Democrats?
Well, I think two things. One, there's nothing to indicate that these new districts are going to be drawn in a way that's going to make it easier for Democrats to win. They're going to be drawn by a Republican-led legislature and then submitted to the court. And at the same time, there are a lot of Democratic districts in this settlement. 5 of the 11 are democratically held right now, and that means that they could potentially lose their seats as well. So I think, one, it's impossible to even, I think, predict what could happen, and therefore, in my view, not appropriate to say that that would be part of my intention here in laying out and doing exactly what I just described. I think the second piece is the fact that, for me, I need to be in this position, making objective decisions, interpreting the law in the best way I can based on my knowledge of the law on behalf of what's best for voters. Most of the time, the decisions I make are potentially going to influence or impact people who have political influence, whether they be Democrats or Republicans. So doing this job well and doing it the way that it's supposed to be done, in a way that is in line with what's best for the voters and being bold in favor of democracy, means that a lot of the decisions I make are going to anger the Democrats and they're going to anger the Republicans. And I'm prepared to take that heat because I'm in this job to do what's right, not to do what either political party would want me to do to alleviate any or to enable them to continue to rig a system in a way that would perpetuate their own influence.
So 11 House districts, but of course those 11 fit in the context of the other 99 that exist. How do you redraw 11 districts without having to redraw the whole map?
I think, one, that's a question for the legislature that's going to be charged with redrawing these districts. But in my view, and I would say, secondly, it's going to be up to the court to really determine that. But if I were approaching this, I would certainly attempt to redraw the districts in a way that removes any partisan animus and partisan intent, which is really the unconstitutional nature of the districts. And perhaps you want to include more Republican districts in districts that were held to support the election of Democrats and vice versa. And that would essentially create 11 competitive districts as opposed to 11 districts that were rigged to favor one party or the other. And so I would look at it that way and do so in trying to minimize the impact on any other districts, which I think is possible when you're talking about a precinct by precinct level change. But again, that's for the legislature to figure out. But I would certainly hope that, to the extent that my opinion matters, that they do so and redraw the districts in a way that has minimal impact of any other district.
And the redraw, what about the disruption of this? You would have to do this by 2020, which is the next scheduled election for the House of Representatives. Then after 2020, when we have the census, in 2021, we'll have another redraw. Is there an argument that we should just let this ride until the decennial redistricting and fix it then?
I think that's an argument the court could consider, because we did not in the settlement put any timeline on the redrawing of the districts, so the court could certainly consider that as an option. But I think we have to remember why we're here. We're here because in 2011, districts were drawn in the state of Michigan that were clearly in violation of the Constitution. There was clear gerrymandering, and it was so stark and so severe that it led to ultimately a ballot initiative led by citizens to completely change the way we draw districts in the future and put that in the hands of the citizens. So that's why we're here and even having this discussion today. And there's sort of a small aspect to that trajectory, but we can't forget that we're here because, again, in 2011, legislators drew districts in a way that was unconstitutional, and as a result, we're here today where we have potentially a federal court, if they agree to the settlement or if we go to trial, making a decision that will conclude that these districts need to be redrawn.
Well, and I want to talk more about this victory for your activism, I guess, on gerrymandering that we saw in 2018. There are a lot of questions people have about the idea that this can be done in a different way. A lot of people doubt that you can't. They doubt that you can draw districts in a way that doesn't put any partisan thumb on the scale. Can you talk to listeners about why you're confident that can happen, and in some practical terms, explain how you keep partisanship out of the process?
Yeah, so I'm excited that the long-term solution for this issue is in place through the Citizens Redistricting Commission that will, in my view, put citizens in charge of the process in a way that will create a balanced approach to drawing these districts with transparency and citizen involvement. And that said, I think, to me, starting at the end point, when you look at California and other states who have done this, the mark of a good, competitive, nonpartisan map is one that neither parties like. And so, that kind of tells us what to me would be a fair map that's nonpartisan, that doesn't really benefit one party or the other, and that it has competitive districts throughout. So the process in getting there, the best process is usually having citizens in charge, because you remove that conflict of interest legislators often have to make something work on behalf of them, their friends, or their party. And so with this upcoming commission that will be convening in 2021 to draw our next round of districts, my hope and my intention, and perhaps all the attention on this issue will help us do that, is to get as many people as possible to apply to be a part of this commission. It will only work if citizens throughout the state of Michigan sign up and volunteer to be a part of drawing the next round of district maps. It's an incredible opportunity that we have as a state to show the rest of the country how this can be done well, and how it can be done not just in compliance with the law and the Constitution, but with the best principles of drawing fair districts that promote everyone's voice to be heard. And so that's where we're headed as a state, and I'm really excited to turn my attention to that now and begin going around the state, as I already have started, and having town halls and inviting citizens to think about applying. We'll put up applications online and in branch offices throughout the state this fall so people can begin applying. And then we have a process that will be transparent in selecting those individuals who will be serving on this commission. Everyone can apply, and out of that, both parties have an opportunity to strike people that they feel are too partisan. And then out of that, a lottery system will ultimately choose the commissioners who will draw these next round of districts, and we'll work to make sure that those districts can be drawn independently, and similarly as they're drawn, that they're done so without undue influence, either nationally and here in Michigan, of various different special interests coming in and try to influence the process.